I'm Dr. Hartman. My office is Neskin 211 across the street. My office hours are Tuesday through Friday, 2 to 4:30. Some of those office hours are going to be that circuits tutoring. So I actually probably won't be in my office. As soon as I figure out what room the circuits tutoring is going to be in, I'll put it up there. But those times are correct. My email address is my last name @latech.edu, and my phone number for my office is on there. You should not call me, email me, or just show up. I'm not in there enough to warrant you trying to call me there. In the event of a natural disaster, weather event, I don't know, COVID, whatever, we will have the class on Moodle and Zoom instead of in person. The course objectives is you guys are going to learn a lot of stuff about circuits because this is a circuits class. Of course, that's what you're going to learn. The textbook for this class is officially Engineering Circuit Analysis 9th edition. Unofficially, there isn't a textbook. I record all of my lectures and I post them all on my shitty YouTube channel. So if you need to go back and review stuff, you can look for it there and all that kind of jazz. I'm not required to do this. So I'm saying that because sometimes I get busy and I don't get my videos up in a timely fashion, and I'm okay with that. So you need to be okay with it as well. They will be up before the exam. And that's as good as I can do. So I teach 4 hours of overload this quarter, and I'm also involved in sponsored research projects, member of the University Senate, all kinds of crazy stuff. So I get to it when I can get to it. I'm recording and posting my lectures as a favor to you all, so don't be jerks about it. That's my rant there. All right, so like I said, the textbook is Engineering Circuit Analysis 9th edition. I honestly hope none of you guys actually bought it. The reason for that is if you go onto Google and you type in CADULABY, the first link that pops up is a textbook from the University of Michigan, written by Dr. Fawaz Ulabi. And you can download this textbook completely for free, and it covers roughly the same material. All circuits textbooks are going to cover roughly the same material in pretty similar ways. So this is a free, very good textbook that you can get. You could, I'm not encouraging anybody to do this, but you could definitely find our official textbook online if you search hard enough and all that kind of stuff. But this is one that you're not actually stealing, so it's the one that I recommend. I always highly recommend not giving the Louisiana Tech Bookstore any of your money. It's a total scam. So anyway. All right. Let's see. Disability disclosure. If you need testing accommodations and all that kind of stuff, handle your business quickly. I have had students in the past decide for some strange reason that they want to take the first test before they decide whether or not to fill out their paperwork and all that kind of jazz. That is completely and utterly moronic. If you have a diagnosed learning disorder or whatever, and you have the option of taking, getting extra time on your exams, taking it in a quiet room and all of that kind of stuff, exercise that right as quickly as you possibly can. Do not bomb the hell out of a test just to see how it's going to go when you're in a room with 140 people all shuffling around, making noises and distracting you. If you can take the test in a quiet room and get extended time, do it. You are shooting yourself in the foot if you opt not to do that and you have that available to you. So attendance. So officially, whatever it says in the bulletin. Unofficially, you're paying to be here, so show up if you want to, or if you don't want to, that's your prerogative. You can show up over Zoom if you want to. There's a link on Moodle and all that kind of jazz. I'm not going to fail anybody for not showing up, even though it says I reserve the right to do so. I'm telling you on recording, I'm not going to do it. So I will say that I firmly believe that if you want to actually pass the class, being here is your best option. But if you don't give a shit, I don't give a shit. So Honor code stuff, don't cheat. Academic misconduct, continue to not cheat. Regarding behavior, as long as you don't beat me up in the parking lot or harass your fellow students and all that kind of stuff, we'll be okay. Homeworks, let's see. There's going to be, I think, 24 web work assignments. From the sound of it, Dr. Swanbaum, he's the one who's handling all of the web work stuff as far as the administration goes. He seems to want it to move the due date closer to make you guys procrastinate less. So I don't know, you should all be added to the web work within the next day or two, and then you'll see what the due dates and all that kind of stuff are. In-class assignments, this is something that I do and I'm trying to pressure the other professors into doing. I have no idea whether they're doing it or not, but effectively this is a participation grade. So I don't want to talk for 2 hours. None of you want to listen to me talk about circuits for 2 hours. So instead, I usually talk for about 1 hour, and then I give you guys a small set of problems to work in class with the hope there that you are going to discuss among the other people at your table how to work the problems and stuff like that. And then if you guys collectively get stuck, you flag me down and we talk about how to solve things. So this is a way for you guys to identify what you listen to my lecture, participate and all that kind of stuff. And then you figure out what you don't know before you go do a homework and all that kind of jazz. So it's hopefully a way to head off a lot of questions regarding homeworks, assignments, and all that kind of good stuff like that. The in-class assignments are not graded for completeness, nor are they graded for correctness, which means if you are here and you are working on it, you are doing it correctly and you will receive 100. The only way to not get 100 on an in-class assignment is to not turn it in, or to be watching soccer or some other bullshit on your phone instead of actually working on it and contributing with your peers. If you're here and you're trying, you get that part of your grade, okay? Mini labs are kind of a similar concept. There are 8 miniature lab assignments. Our first one will be on Friday that are meant to reinforce the concepts that we're going to be talking about. Again, this is largely a participation type thing. If you're here and you're working on the mini lab assignment, you get full credit. If you're not here, you get 0 credit. If you have to miss a mini lab, there is a date at the end of the quarter that you can come in and make any that you've missed up. All right, exams. There are going to be 3 exams in this class. The first exam effectively covers DC analysis. The second exam covers transient analysis and a couple of extra topics. The third exam covers steady state sinusoidal analysis. The exams are not cumulative per se. That being said, pretty much every topic in this class builds off of what you've learned previously, so it's largely cumulative without being specifically cumulative. Homeworks are worth 15% of your final grade, in-class assignments are worth 5%, mini labs are worth 5%. So effectively, if you just show up and don't completely screw around the entire time, you get a letter grade of participation. Exam 1, 2, and 3 are all worth 30%, and then whichever exam you score the worst on, it's only weighted for half. So you can, as long as you make above a 34 on all of your exams, mathematically an A is in the cards for you. Like if you make a 34 on one exam, you have to make 100 on everything else. But you can completely and utterly bomb one test and still pull an A in this class if you do everything else correctly. So because of what I feel to be a very nice policy regarding participation in exams, I am a jackass and do not curve. So if you want an A in this class, you need a 90 or higher, and 89.99 is a B. Syllabus changes. I don't think anything is going to have to change, but if it does, I reserve the right to do so as long as I inform you of what changes I've made. Emergency notification system, you should sign up for it so that you'll know if class is canceled due to a snow event and all that kind of good stuff. COVID policy stuff you guys have seen in every class you've had since you've been here. So there it is. Here is our tentative schedule. No problem. So today, after I finish talking about the syllabus here in the next 5 minutes or so, then we're going to get into a brief 45-ish minute lecture and then let you guys out early. We have a list of topics, homework assignments, which are associated with those topics and all that kind of stuff. I have the dates at which you will participate in each mini lab. By the way, to participate in the mini labs, you need to go buy a kit down the hall from Ashley Osborne. It's $10. Really only one person per student group needs it. So whoever feels the least likely that they're going to wind up dropping this class, go shell out $10 and let the rest of your peers benefit from your benevolence. Let's see. Our first test is on the Thursday after we get back from the Christmas holidays. So we have one class meeting and then the exam. There is not going to be a class meeting on the Friday, so you get that Friday off. Our second test is on January the 30th. So that is 2 class meetings before the drop date. So you should have multiple homework grades and 2 exam grades back to you so that you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you should stay in this class. Our final is going to be on Thursday, the 16th of February. So that's the Thursday before we get out for Mardi Gras break. And then once we get back from Mardi Gras break, all you have to do is make up your mini labs if you missed any. If not, you hit Mardi Gras break and you're done with this class. So there is a benefit to showing up and handling all your mini labs and all that kind of jazz. All right. I don't know what the rooms for the exams are or anything like that yet. So as soon as I figure that out, I will probably update the syllabus to include the room numbers and all that kind of stuff there for you. I'll also send a message out on the course's Moodle page. Any questions regarding the syllabus? It is indeed a syllabus. All right. So with all that jibber jabber out of the way, let's start talking circuits. Actually, so today we are going to talk about basic circuits terminology. And this is really just to make sure that we're all speaking the same language, because you guys had a multitude of different engineering 120, 121, and 122 teachers, some of which teach circuits related material well, others of which teach it, in my opinion, not so well. And so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page so that we can be relatively successful in this class. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is networks, nodes, and series and parallel connections. All of this should largely be review. So I'm going to start by introducing a generic circuit element. So this is going to be circuit element A. Circuit element A here is an example of a 2-terminal circuit element. So my terminals are these connections here at the top of the element and the bottom of the element. And those terminals are what are used to connect to other parts of a circuit. So other components where I connect wires and things like that, okay? 2-terminal circuit elements are what we're going to be dealing with for the overwhelming majority of the time in this class. So examples of 2-terminal circuit elements are voltage sources and batteries, resistors, capacitors, inductors, current sources, things like that. We are going to talk about a single element that is not a 2-terminal element, and that is the operational amplifier. That'll be much, much later. The op-amp is actually a 7-terminal device, although we only concern ourselves from an analysis standpoint with 3 of them, and from a physical implementation standpoint with 5 of the 7 pins, okay? In the Engineering 120 series, at least back when I taught it several years ago at this point, we dealt with a couple of 3-terminal devices, mainly MOSFET transistors. Those are typically 3-terminal devices, gate, source, and drain. They might be a 4-terminal device, gate, source, drain, and body. If you need to bias the substrate, some MOSFETs have 4 pins. You also dealt with 4-pin devices like relays and all that kind of stuff as well. So anyway, for this class, the overwhelming majority of the time, we're going to be dealing with 2-terminal devices, but I just want to make you aware what they are. Okay. So since the circuit's terminals are what allows connections between elements to be made, let's expand our simple thing here and connect another element. So I've added a circuit element B. Okay, this is also another generic 2-terminal circuit element. And whenever I have 2 or more circuit elements connected together, they form a network. And the points of interconnection between the circuit elements are called nodes. So I'm going to hit you with some simple definitions. A network is an interconnection between 2 or more circuit elements, and a node is a point of interconnection between 2 or more circuit elements. So let's do it in blue. All right, so this point right here, where elements A and B are connected together, is a node. Now, in this class, we are actually going to consider all the points between the body of element A and the body of element B a single node. So what I mean by that is if I wanted to identify a node, which is what we're going to spend a significant amount of time doing in this class, I could start at element A and keep on going to element B, and that is all considered one node. And we'll talk about why those wires are considered part of the node in class next Monday. So for now, you are going on faith that I am correct because I am a jackass with a PhD. Okay. We could also consider this leg here a node. While it's not a point of interconnection specifically, it's a point where a connection could be made. So we can call that a node. And similarly, this point over here to the right of element B could also be a node. So this network containing a whopping 2 elements actually contains 3 nodes, okay? So let's connect even more circuit elements. Make sure I'm using the right thickness so it doesn't bother me. All right, so our network has been expanded now to include 4 elements, let's take a moment here to identify our nodes. I typically identify my nodes using different colors, and I will explain why that is here in just a moment. Okay. So as we begin to analyze larger and more complicated circuits, it's going to be useful for us to be able to identify our nodes. So in this particular circuit, we can see that there are 4 elements and there are 3 nodes. So we could call our 3 nodes the blue node, the orange node, and the red node. If you don't have colored pencils, markers, etc., you could label them as 1, 2, and 3, like so, whatever makes you comfortable. I like to use different colors because it helps me to identify how components are connected to each other, okay? So if we look at circuit elements A and B, we can see that there is a single path between them that doesn't have any branches. So that's what we are going to consider a series connection, okay? If the 2 elements are directly connected together by a single path and there is no branching path, all right? So I'm going to write that down. I've underlined the word 2 here, okay? So as of today, we are going to consider this specific case, like we observed with elements A and B, as a series connection. As we learn more about circuits, specifically a thing called Kirchhoff's current law, we will expand our definition of what it means for elements to be connected in series. So for right now, series is 2 elements tops. Once we learn a little bit more, we will expand our definition. If we look at the connection between elements C and D, we can see that they share the orange node and they share the red node. That is a parallel connection because they share both sets of their terminal pairs. Okay. So a parallel connection is a connection between 2 or more circuit elements where terminal pairs are shared. Okay. So what about the connection between elements B and C? Is it series? No. They do share a point of interconnection, right? But there is a branching path that goes out to connect to element D. So they are not in series. Are B and C in parallel? Mr. Neal, why aren't they in parallel? Okay, I'll put it into words for you then. So B and C obviously share one set of terminal pairs because they're both connected to the orange node, right? But their other terminals, so in this case, in element B, the left-hand terminal is at the blue node. For element C, the bottom terminal is at the red node. Red and blue aren't the same color, so they're not at the same node, right? So they share one terminal pair, but not the other terminals, right? So B and C are not in series and they are not in parallel. That's perfectly okay, all right? That's one of the things that bothers me the most about the Engineering 120 teachers is that they don't mention that it's perfectly acceptable for it to not be in series or not be in parallel. That's going to happen all the time. We are going to learn analysis techniques and simplification techniques that can make things look like they are in series, look like they're in parallel, all that kind of good stuff. But it's really perfectly okay for it to not be in series or parallel. Yes, sir. So this is a pair of terminals for elements C and D. This is a pair of terminals. Right? So for them to be in parallel, both have to be shared. So how I like to look at this is elements C and D are connected between the orange node and the red node. Since they're between the same colors, they have to be in parallel. Okay. Or we could say they're connected between nodes 2 and 3 using the numerical designation that I've done as well. All right, so let's go to a different page here and do a simple example problem. Four have been drawn. Let's do this one. All right, so this network is a bit more complicated. It contains 8 elements. I want us to answer the following questions. A, how many nodes does this network contain? B, which of the elements are connected in series? And C, which of the elements are connected in parallel? So I'm going to help you guys out, and I'm going to do part A here. All right. So I'm going to do much like I did when we were learning what nodes and all that kind of stuff are. I'm going to identify my nodes. So I've chosen the color red. I'm starting at element A, going up, and I'm just following this line until I hit another element, coming back around down here. And so this is a single node, right? So this is all of the different ways that A, D, and E are connected to each other. Now I'm going to use a different color. Let's do green. Let's do blue here. Purple here. And orange here. How many nodes is that? How many different colors are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any of the node identification not make any sense? All right. So now let's talk about which of the elements are connected in series. Trey Davidson, tell me which elements are connected in series. Also tell me where you are, because I don't remember from when I called roll over. Right. All right, Trey. All right, so stop there. So E and H are connected in series because they share that single point or that single path that doesn't have any branches. So you're absolutely correct there. Ria, are there any other elements that are connected in series? We've already done E and H. B and C, absolutely correct. All right. Hannah Riddick, you've made a mistake by letting me learn your name. It's okay. Yeah, totally on you. Are there any other elements connected in series? No. All right. So we have a series connection between E and H. We have a series connection between B and C, and that's it. All right. Caitlin, which of the elements are connected in parallel? A and D. Okay, so A and D both share the red node and they both share the green node, so that's correct. Let's see. Braden Hermes, where are you at again? Thank you. Braden, are there any other elements that are connected in parallel? F and G. They both share the green and they both share the purple, so that's correct. All right, so at least 5 of you seem to vaguely understand series and parallel connections. Hopefully a lot more of you do as well. I know for a fact that all of you have been taught this material before, but you would be surprised as to how many of you are going to make simple mistakes regarding series and parallel connections once we get into the more complicated analysis. So I'm hitting it again here for a very specific reason, all right? If anybody has any questions about, yes, ma'am.
For B and C, they're connected in series, but are they also connected in parallel because they share and they share the blue?
That's a fantastic thing. Yes. They are connected both in series and in parallel. I didn't even notice that, but you're 100% correct. Right, so what Bree noticed here is that they share the blue node. So that is their series connection. They're connected in series, and there is no branching path, but they also connected in parallel because they additionally share that green node. So if I were to draw a simple network like this, let's call this element X and element Y. This would be the classical example of two elements that are both connected in series and in parallel. Yeah, but you're 100% correct that B and C are also in parallel. So thank you for pointing that out. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Let me see. I need to write that on my notes. Yes.
If they are both in series, is one of those qualifications supersede the other?
No. So from a connection standpoint, it's literally just saying this is how they're connected. With regards to how we are going to analyze things, we have choices, but we are not there yet because we haven't got into Kirchhoff's current law, Kirchhoff's voltage law, and all that kind of stuff to talk about how we can combine them or treat them. And that is very much dependent on the circuit that we're analyzing and what our goals are as to what would be our best option there. So. All right. Any other questions regarding series and parallel connections? And thank you again, Bree, for noticing that. All right, so one thing that I want to point out, I make mistakes literally all of the time because I am, as I've said previously, just a jackass with a PhD. If you guys see something that you're like, I don't think that's right, please let me know. I would much rather you correct me or question me than I teach you the wrong thing, okay? Am I an egotistical jackass? Absolutely, okay, 100%. But my job is to teach you how to analyze circuits the right way. So if it's not clicking, if you think I've made a mistake, it doesn't hurt my feelings or anything like that, I'm not going to lash out at you. I want to know when I've made a mistake so that we can rectify it, and I don't have a bunch of people leaving here thinking they know what they're doing when they've learned an incorrect method, okay? So I just want to be clear about that. All right. So I'm going to go back to our first page and we are going to continue on. Now we are going to talk about circuits, loops, and meshes. Okay. So I'm going to redraw the network from before. So here's element A, B, C, and D. Exact same network that we dealt with earlier. But now I'm going to call this network a circuit. So the reason why I can call this network a circuit is because it is a network that contains a closed path, okay? So that's the only differentiation between a circuit and a network. If there is a closed path, it is a circuit. If there is not a closed path, it is a network. So all circuits are networks, but not all networks are circuits. So a circuit is any network that contains at least one closed path. All right. So in a circuit, a closed path is commonly referred to as a loop. So let's identify our loops. our first loop is this guy right here. We are able to begin and end at the same point in the circuit. So we have formed a closed path. That is a single loop. This right here is also a loop. Okay. Is that all of my loops? No. What am I missing? The one on the outside edge. Thank you. It appears that my battery on my laptop is about to die, so please give me just one moment to figure out why I'm not getting power. All right. That should do it. So this circuit contains 3 loops. Okay. Now let's talk about meshes. A mesh is any loop that does not contain a smaller loop. So the red loop and the blue loop, excuse me, are meshes, while the gray loop is not, because the gray loop contains the red loop and the blue loop. Okay, so that's the differentiation between meshes and loops. Being able to identify meshes is also very important, just as important in my opinion as being able to correctly identify nodes, because there is a concept called mesh analysis that you guys are going to learn within roughly 2 weeks. And you're going to be absolutely furious with your engineering 120 teachers as to why they didn't teach you this pretty simple and straightforward concept, which can be used to analyze an overwhelming majority of circuits. Same with nodal analysis. All right, so let's wrap things up here by revisiting this same circuit, but now we are going to identify how many meshes and loops this circuit contains. So I'm going to redraw my circuit. Here's A. B. C. D. E. H. F. And G. All right. So how many meshes does this circuit contain? It should be fairly straightforward. Yes, sir. 4, absolutely right. So here's our first mesh. This could be mesh 2, 3, and 4. So 4 meshes, pretty simple. How many loops are there? A lot more than 4, right? So if I were to try to identify all of our meshes, or excuse me, all of our loops in this circuit, I would do it in a organized fashion. So I have my 1 mesh loops. I think there are going to be some number of 2 mesh loops, some number of 3 mesh loops, and some number of 4 mesh loops. And then I would add all those together. There obviously can't be any 5 mesh loops or anything beyond that because there are only 4 meshes. So how many 1 mesh loops are there? 4, because there are 4 meshes. Okay. How many 2 mesh loops are there? Also 4, right? So it would be all of the different permutations of this. So we could have a vertical 2 mesh loop on the left, a vertical 2 mesh loop on the right, a horizontal 2 mesh loop on top, a horizontal 2 mesh loop on bottom. So there are 4 2 mesh loops as well. How many 3 mesh loops are there? Also 4, right? So for our 4 mesh loops, they would look something like this. And then if we rotate that shape effectively by 90 degrees, we'll figure out all 4 of those 3 mesh loops. All right, how many 4 mesh loops are there? 1, just the one around the perimeter of the circuit. So this circuit, which contained 4 meshes, contains 13 loops, okay? So identifying loops can be helpful because there are going to be times where our analysis will be a lot easier if we get a little creative as to which loops we're going to use to do our analysis. And I'll give you guys examples of that as early as Monday. So, all right, so I believe we are all speaking the same language. We understand what circuit elements are, terminals are, series and parallel connections. We have learned how to identify nodes, meshes, and loops. So we are done for today. There is no in-class assignment for today. There is no homework for today's lecture. So you have listened to me rant about things for roughly an hour. Have a great rest of your day.